Hello, everyone. Welcome to School After Hours podcast, where we talk about all things related to out-of-school time programming and education. I am your host, Jaylee, and we have the wonderful Mr. Kenrick Wagner here with us from Game Time. So he's going to be sharing with us his experience in out-of-school time programming, but also touching base on the entrepreneur side of programming, getting into schools, reaching out to communities, providing those services, and enriching the youth. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this business than anything today. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into our community corner.
Woo!
Community Corner is a segment of the show that allows guests or myself to share tips, advice, or information on a specific topic with young people, families, or community members. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our Community Corner conversation. Welcome, Kenrick. Thank you for coming to the show. Happy that you are a guest.
God bless. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be at the #1 podcast for after school and out of school time happenings in the nation.
Whoa, we're going to speak it into existence. Somebody going to get that.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, you're the only, so you got to be the best.
Oh, I appreciate it. I do. I'll take it. So for Community Corner, my question for you is, what are the benefits of having an art program or performing arts program in a school or a community center?
Well, #1, the benefits is that you're giving young people an access to be able to express themselves outside of an academic structure throughout the rest of the school day. So having an arts program as a part of, the out of school time structure is basically a way to build community, build relationships, and build talents that young people may not have access to during the other times of their lives. So it's an empowering experience, and it's a part of helping young people figure out who they are and what they really have to offer to the world.
Right. And I feel like that is key because I might not be the best baker. You know what I mean? Like, chess is definitely not my game. It looks nice. A lot of mental strategy, but it's not my game.
Yeah.
Checkers, we might.
Yeah. And you know what? I think a lot of young people and adults are intimidated by the word sing. When you hear the word sing, you associate it with whoever it is you aspire to be or listen to and really love out there. But what I think young people are missing is the fact that being able to just use and control your voice is a form of singing. It's approximation. You ever hear this word tone deaf? The idea that someone cannot sing on key or in tone with what they're hearing. Well, I challenge that as a myth. You can't really be tone deaf because as long as you can speak, as long as you're using words, as long as you're using communication and using some part of your body to create sound, you're able to create tone. So you can't really be tone deaf, right? You are only being kind of steered towards what it is you're imagining it should sound like. And that's what the world is telling you. But if you take it from internal and outward, then you are creating your own musical lane. And that's the beauty of art, right? Like arts blur the lines between what society kind of pressures us into being and, kind of giving us what a standard is. And it breaks that boundary and says, you know what? The standard really comes from you. It really comes internally. And art allows us to be able to communicate that internal expertise outwards. Everybody is an expert in what they like. If you can listen to music and you can point out music that you like and why, you're a musician. Doesn't mean you have to pick up an instrument. You can identify with sound. You can describe sound. You can approximate and mimic sound. You're an artist.
I know that's right. We're going to put these kids to work. We're going to put these babies to work. Sure are. All right, so we're going to go ahead and roll into our interview questions.
Yay.
All right, so Kenrick, once again, thank you for being on the show. So for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the out of school time programming space.
Absolutely. So, my name is Kenrick. I grew up in a small town called Left Rack City, Queens, New York. Those of you who know that know the rapper Nori came out of Left Rack. And growing up, I did not have access to after school program actually. So, it may or may not have been in my school, but I knew it wasn't available to me for could have been reasons of, with my mom's work schedule or other reasons of affordability that I didn't know. So what actually happened is, as I grew up in school and, you know, became a young man, going to high school, graduating high school, not knowing what my next move was going to be, a tragic incident happened with my sister. When I was 20 and my sister turned 23, she actually passed away due to a brain aneurysm. And it was nothing that we could do about it. There's nothing that we knew. There was no, I guess, predetermined signs that there was something there. It was very sudden and swift. And now I could look back and say, I was dealing with trauma and mental health, but obviously as a 20-year-old kid, I didn't have access to that information or knew how to describe it in words. So my only way to kind of find some peace and therapy was to try to figure out a way to leave Queens and see what the world looked like outside of that. And the only way that I could afford to do that was to work at a summer camp. And so I applied to work at a summer camp in Carmel, New York. And that changed my life because there were a bunch of kids that also came from the city. And here I am, a junior camp counselor, engaging a ton of young people from Bronx, from Brooklyn, Manhattan, and from Queens. And from the moment that I've interacted with the first couple of childs and they came off the bus, I said to myself, oh, this is me. This is what I see myself doing for the rest of my life. There was a certain feeling of leading and empowering and giving young people a space to be able to, communicate, to create, to engage with each other and build these relationships. And me being sort of that orchestrator was kind of
Mhm.
like a dual therapy experience, right? So I was getting away from the city. I never had these type of programs. And here I am in a program actually being a part of that and being a leader and pouring into young people. So from there, I ended up working in after school programs after that summer camp has stopped, and it just merged into me kind of being dedicated, involved in my work to a point to where I was just obsessed with creating more programs for young people or being involved and looking at more than just the interaction from myself to the child, but also looking from a larger scope of like, how do these things get put together? How do we build programs like this? And how do we engage young people to be the best versions of themselves?
Right, right. I like the part that you bring about knowing that, like having that feeling of,
Yeah,
oh, this is it. Oh, I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. Yes.
right. Hmm.
So from there, going into after school spaces and working for different organizations, kind of tell us about that journey.
Sure. So like I said, I started as a junior counselor in summer camp, and uh
Excuse me.
then I was promoted to a division leader, who was like a manager of counselors as well in the middle of the summer. And then I trans in the middle of the summer, it was like, you're a leader, you're good, do it. I'm like, all right.
What?
I'm like, all right, well, I guess. I mean, when the universe, some people call it God, some people call it the universe, whatever you choose to identify it with. Like when the universe or God chooses you, you step up to the plate. you
Okay.
know Sometimes it comes in the form of a manager that says, all right, it's 2 weeks, you're good, do it. And it's a sink or swim situation, but in my sense it was like I was excited to take the plunge. Some people might have been a little bit scared about it. They might have stepped back, but because it became an extension of myself, I had no fear. So then I went into the after school space and I worked in organizations all over New York City, with Brooklyn, Manhattan, and the Bronx, and all types of programs. I mean, from arts programs, sports, martial arts based programs, programs that work with like just social, emotional, and working with young people in the city and trying to give them more outlets to kind of express themselves and grow academically. And then what happened was I found myself in a space to where I felt like I was hitting my head on a glass ceiling. And what does that mean,
Mm,
right? So I was in these organizations, and there were some things that I noticed about the organization structurally that was interesting.
okay.
I noticed that there were not a lot of people that looked like me that were in the executive positions of these organizations.
Mm,
And it didn't really matter to me in the beginning, but what I started to understand, or at least believe, was that, well, if I am now serving these communities where the
mhm,
kids look a lot like me, and they understand my culture and they communicate the way I do, and they really are drawn to me, but the person that's at the top doesn't kind of look or feel, with the same culture, then how is there relevance between the top to the young people that are down there? Well, I'm the
mhm,
intermediary, right? So that's why I could hit myself on a glass ceiling, because I would only be seen as a person that could get as far as maybe a director or multi-site director. Because
mm,
maybe, just maybe, because the culture role difference between myself and the executives, they may not have understood that there was more to a person like me than just engagement, excitement, cultural relevance, and programmatic design. Maybe
mm,
they didn't have the opportunity to see or to understand that there was so much more potential that I had, that I could be an administrator, right? Like, I can handle finances. I can
mhm,
look at large scope. I could build programs, and I can build sustainability systems. So
mm,
with that being, in my sense, a blind spot to the ones who are on the executive level of after school management, I decided to pivot. I decided that the only way that I can acquire a position in which I can make an impact on a level that is much grander than one at a director's level, or a mid level, I would have to create this.
right.
So I decided to become what we call a social entrepreneur, or, an after school entrepreneur. And I designed and created my own after school program, which at
Uh,
first was called Embassy. And Embassy is an initiative, and it's also an acronym that stands for Enhancing the Mind, Body, and Soul for Successful Youth. All right,
mm,
which
nice.
would mean that we would, in exactly what it means, right? Very literal: mind, academic support; body, sports, and recreation; and soul, the creative arts, which had a very typical after school structure of snack, homework help, and then you would have mind, body, and soul things going on the second half of the day. And with
Mm,
that, I realized and learned a lot about entrepreneurship and the potential that it would have to grow on a larger scale.
So with creating Embassy, how did you come up with your concept for Embassy first? Because
Mhm,
you have like these many things that
mhm,
you're incorporating in your program, right?
mhm.
But also, how did you add that music element into it as well?
Sure. So a lot of the ideas of creating Embassy has come from a lot of the experience that I had working in after school for all these years before I decided to create. So I seen
Mhm.
programs that did music, I seen programs that did recreation and sports, and I seen programs that focused on kind of like homework help and enriching. And to me, I felt like, why can't our young people have all of them? I don't feel like our program needed to just focus on one. We can be a well-rounded program, right? If you think
Mhm.
of the model of restaurants, right? You have some restaurants who are like, Italian food is their thing, they stick there. Some are like burgers, and they do these extravagant burgers and they stick there. Then you have some that are called tapas restaurants. And tapas restaurants give you small plates, but they have well-rounded food from all different styles of cooking.
Mhm.
And it's actually a better experience to me because in Tapas I get to travel to 3 countries and
Right.
I'm not as full at the end. I still want more, right? So isn't that the same concept with embassy is like, well, I'm gonna give you a little bit of mind, body, and soul because those things they intertwine and you're going to be so inspired by all of that that you're gonna want to seek out more to be able to figure
Mhm.
out where you want to be in life.
Right. Okay. All right. So in designing your program,
Mm-hmm.
um, I know we had a conversation offline of deciding between, going nonprofit, for profit.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that process like for you in deciding and making that decision?
Oh, for sure. So that ties into Embassy into Game Time. So when Embassy started, I wanted it to be a nonprofit program. Now,
Mhm.
when I look back at it, the reason why I wanted it to be a nonprofit program is because I worked in a majority of nonprofit programs.
Mhm.
So I was basically influenced. There was no logical reasoning behind it per se. For me, it was just about the work. I wanted to do great things for young people. I want them to realize potential, and I want them to know what a safe space looks and feels like. End of story. But
Mhm.
since I came up through the whole nonprofit, it became it almost in my mind became taboo not to work. If I work with kids, it had to be a nonprofit structure because
Mhm.
that's what you're supposed to do if you're working with kids, because nonprofits are the good guys. This is literally in my mind subconsciously how I saw it. It was, if you're not nonprofit, you're corporate, and corporate is greasy, slimy, da 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 da. And
Mhm.
these are just the kind of things that go on in your head when you grow up and your culture is based on this. So I started Embassy and I did a nonprofit. What I didn't know was when I was creating that nonprofit that it was going to take me 9 months to actually get the 501(c)(3) status. So,
Oh.
there was a heck of a grind.
Mm.
But it was instrumental to my growth because it tested every ounce of will, every
Mhm.
ounce of confidence, and
Mhm.
every ounce of consistency that needed to happen to be able to capture and to get that, right?
Mm.
So I get the 501(c)(3), cool. We start Embassy. I'm able to legally do fundraising, and now I have to look for grants. Now,
Mhm.
when you go into the grant space, what they don't tell you is when you want these massive programs, you want these massive government grants, well, you got to do a lot of writing
Yeah.
and your funds are restricted. So you can go ahead and win something for 6 figures for your kids, but now the public or the government has influence on the whens, the wheres, the whys, and the whos, or who
Mm.
you serve. Otherwise, they pull that funding. So
Right.
now you get lost. You get a little bit of loss of control of your intellectual property, if you will, when you're talking about the program design and program function. Not
Mhm.
to mention on the back end, there's a ton of administrative work that you have to do to be able to maintain funding.
Mhm.
Now that structure is not bad in a nonprofit, but you got to remember, I'm a solo social entrepreneur,
Mhm.
right? So that means that I have to have the capacity to collect data, to program design, to function program, and report, which traditional nonprofits, and at least the ones that I came up with, oh, they had an office building an entire team to do the
To do
things that
that.
I had to do.
Right.
So after 2.5 years, I'd say, of embassy, I decided to dissolve it
Okay.
because what I did was, instead of applying for government grants, I would go direct to business. So I would go to a charter school, and I got my first program in the charter school,
Mhm.
and they paid out of pocket.
Okay.
So I didn't have to go through those things. But
Mhm.
then navigating that is also different because if you have a school or a charter school that pays out of pocket, that's cool. But if the principal decides that, you know what, we can't afford it, you lose a school just
Right.
like that.
Mhm.
So from that experience that taught me so much, I decided to pivot into consulting and building a single member LLC called Project Game Time.
Did you know that education consulting is a $1.9 billion industry according to the IBIS World US Industry Report? $1.9 billion. What could you do with that money? Something to think about. Okay. So you said, let's go back a little bit because I want to tackle a few things. So you
Mm-hmm.
said in applying for that 501c for your nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
that it tested any and everything in your soul. So
Mm-hmm.
it was your make it or break it moment.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a little bit more about that. What was so trying about that process? Was it that you really didn't have anyone to like kind of give you the guidance that you need, or the structure itself just didn't fit what you wanted to do as far as a program?
Sure. So a little bit of both. So one of the biggest tests was to be able to apply for that nonprofit. You had to fill out a lot of paperwork with the IRS, a lot of legal documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say the word legal documentation, I mean you have to be everything outside of a lawyer to know what you're reading and what you're responding to make sure that you get approved, because you could apply and put it in there in 9 months, they could tell you you don't have it and you just wasted 9 months of your life on that trial. So I had to find legal help, and obviously I'm by myself, I'm broke. So then I had to partner with a nonprofit legal a nonprofit law firm. I was able to find that, and
Mm-hmm.
that was trying itself. Like when you talk about the back and forth emails, the meeting with people, we're talking around time like Zoom wasn't popping like that. You might
Right.
have had Skype. You didn't have a legal Zoom. So, going down to the city, going all the way downtown, an hour on the train, 2 hour on the train to get down and sit with lawyers that are helping. And God bless them. They were very helpful. They're writing documents, they're sending documents back. I'm reading it through and sending it back. They're telling me what I could say, what I can't say, right? And then I'm also at the same time like trying to get my initial fundraiser started as well, like to
Mm-hmm.
launch this whole program. So a lot of that and a lot of waiting where it's like you can't move, you can't do anything. I can't start no program. I can't promote. I gotta like basically wait 9 months and just meet with lawyers and cross my fingers and pray. And that tested a lot of my will, and it tested a lot of my patience, because by design I'm a person who is, when I see something that I want to do for someone or something that's larger than me, I'm ready to turn the key. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to sit around and just look around and fiddle my fingers and do nothing while these kids don't have a program to go to. I
Right.
want to be the guy to be able to do it, and then I have to do a lot of the stuff around. I had to have a job, of course, so like I had
Right.
to work and then do that as well. So it was a trying time, but
Right.
like I said, it was well worth it, because nothing is more like, I don't feel I could have went to college for nonprofit management, but I don't feel like I would have gotten the same experience and impact than doing it the way that I've done it. Like really just doing my own research, educating myself, going out there, finding the partnerships, getting the partnerships, meeting with people, and kind of exercising it and being able to navigate that language and learn that firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
That was a priceless experience.
Right. Right. And jumping into now dissolving your program and
Yeah.
then starting game time, going with starting from scratch. We're going with a new plan. This nonprofit ain't working. Like, look,
Mhm.
we're not doing this twice.
Right. Exactly.
We are not doing this twice.
Mm,
No, we're
mm,
not doing that.
right.
So,
Hmm.
going in to create your LLC and start game time. So, what was that process like for you? And then, how did you start to reach out to different schools? Because now you're a provider, right? A
Right.
program provider. So,
Hmm.
how do you begin to pitch yourself to schools and pitch yourself to different areas,
Hmm.
different organizations? Let me say,
Hmm.
so that they can pick you up and you can start generating money. Because now it's a case
Hmm.
of you can go directly to whomever to get the money that you need.
Hmm.
Necessarily, you don't also have to apply for a grant, but I support grants.
Of
Um,
course. And so do
but
I.
now you have to keep your doors open and your business afloat, because now it's a business now. So what
Hmm.
was that process like?
Well, getting the process to get the LLC was 100 times easier.
Right.
Um, and when I started Game Time, which was when I actually started Game Time around 2013, but when it was incorporated as an LLC, that was 2015.
Hmm.
So because at first I just started it, Game Time was basically me, and a friend of mine, my best friend Roger, and we would just go to camps and train. We were recognized by a sleepaway camp who thought that we had something special, and they say, you got something here. I don't know what you're trying to do with it, but like your energy and the way that you engage even the staff is very very interesting, and it's very impactful. So we would like you to do that. So we just did it as kind of like a summer run. We would do our job all 9 months of the year, working in after school, site directors and all that. And then we would just do this in the summer. And I guess I started to believe when the camps started to call other camps and say, hey, you
Hmm.
need to take a look at what they're doing and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then, after 2 summers, I was like, my mind just shifted, my gear shifted. I was like, all right, it's time. Let's see what we can do with the summer. And I mean the summer, and then try to get engage the fall as well.
Right.
So I started to engage schools by basically finding the emails to administrations and all the DOE, all the New York Department of Ed, all the principals and all of the parent coordinators. So they're kind of like the lifeline, and they have their heads to the street. So I would just go on MailChimp and I would blast the list of these things and see what fell through the cracks. And even if it was one or two, I sent to hundreds of people, and sometimes I only got one or two emails back. But I would chase those things like that was the next best thing.
Right.
I'd meet with people, and then from the training workshops that we did, there were schools that were kind of like, well, you do this so well with our teachers. Do you do anything for kids? I'm like, I kind of been doing that my whole life. And everybody that's on my team has kind of been doing that their whole life. So yes, we can.
Okay.
So then it was a moment again. It was a pivot moment because I had to think about that. Do
Right.
I want to get back involved with running an after school program? And if I do I need to be the director? Because I don't
Right.
want, right? Like I want to sustain, I want to build these things for other people and watch
Hmm.
the glory. So um, after giving it some thought in 2018, we launched our first full after school program that served about 100 kids in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
Okay.
And hired my first director and did a training and hired a staff and then had the whole thing going on, and running like clockwork, which was kind of like the Game Time after school, which is basically the embassy model, like mind, body, and soul. We hired 5 instructors that did different things. It was, art, recreation, sports stuff. And then we had group leaders that would assist with kind of like engagement, behavior management, stuff like that. Then we had a director that oversaw everything, and then we would do kind of like our culminating activities, spring event, fall, winter, Christmas, and all of those things.
Hmm.
Um, and began to run it that way. Um, and in 20 pandemic hit 2020. I'll take you on that timeline. So 2020 comes, pandemic hits.
Hmm.
Um, After school is holding on for dear life because half of the schools are closing down and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and the next pivot happened. So what I decided, and I won't get too deep into it, but outside of that pandemic, that was one thing. But yeah, if you worked in after school programs, relationship with director to school,
Hmm.
sometimes you know how that get. People bump heads, there's
Hmm.
culture problems, things become toxic and drama. I decided that like for me at this time it wouldn't be best. And let me not say for me, for the organization it wouldn't be best,
Right.
because Game Time is about engaging, building, and empowering people. If we're not in a space where we can effectively do that, then we have to make a pivot and decide that that's not a space for us.
Hmm.
So we shifted our model to somewhat of a you could call it a teacher, like an instructor or teaching artist model, where now everything that we offer in terms of workshops with kids is we bring our teaching artists out and we just shift them out to a classroom of 20 kids, and they
Mm-hmm.
work with them in 8 week, 16 and 32-week cycles.
Okay.
So it's not, I don't need to have a director and stuff like that. So that allows us now, I can have programs running in New York, New Jersey, PA, and Tampa, because all I need to do is make sure I train someone well enough to be able to deliver our workshops and deliver our philosophy. And they can go out and build a contract with the school.
Nice. So, expansion at that point is
Expansion.
what you had to think about in order to survive the pandemic, but
Yeah.
also like shifting your model into doing something either digital or physical.
Hmm.
So you're still like in the space.
Correct. Correct.
Ooh, I
Big
know
time.
that was a whole jump.
Big time. Big time. But it was one of the best jumps I made. I'll be honest with you. Like, it's it's so like it's definitely less stressful when I'm dealing with 10 master instructors and teaching artists as opposed to a director, 5 teaching artists, 5 group leaders,
Hmm.
um DOH DOH compliance, DOE
Hmm.
compliance, and the administrative things you have to do to make sure that you're in code at all times. When you're
Right.
dealing with just, a teaching artist, you're basically hiring a contractor.
Hmm.
So they need the minimal, basically, as far as like compliance is concerned. They obviously need their fingerprints,
Yeah.
but outside of that, depending on the state or city, most of the times they're covered under the institution as far as insurance and compliance stuff that usually you would have to do as a full program. The school will take care of that side. You just make sure you do your fingerprinting on your side, and then you run it like that.
Right. So this will be a good moment for us to take a break. So
Mhm.
everybody, go ahead, get some water, use the bathroom, take care of yourself for 5 seconds. Do
Mhm.
not go far because we are going to finish this conversation. All right. See y'all in a
Oh,
minute. Are you a program director or thinking of starting a program? Maybe you need new curriculum that focuses on character development or technical skills. Maybe you need help establishing effective program logistics to have an impactful program culture. Or overall, you just need a program evaluation. Well, School After Hours Consulting is here to help. Contact us at schoolafterhours.com, and our contact information is in the show notes. Hope to hear from you soon. Welcome back, wonderful people. So we have our guest, Mr. Kenrick Wagner here from Game Time, CEO and founder. We're sitting here talking about the entrepreneurship side of program providing in the after school programming space. So Kenrick shared with us his start out process, how he got involved in out of school time programming and discovered that he had a little something going on. He was giving something that the people liked. So in that process, he then started to build his organization from going from nonprofit now switching over to for profit. So that's where we're going to go ahead and pick up our conversation. I guess you're at your site now that your people are being recognized, people are recognizing you, you're doing workshops for teachers,
mhm.
and they say like, you know what? You got something going on. Like it's good for our teachers. We wonder how our students now will react and engage with this content that you're giving, right?
Mhm.
So how did you begin to make that decision? Because it was a debate for you at one point. Like, do
Okay.
I really want to go back to being around these children every day?
Mhm. And I love them too. I love them so much. So when it comes to like, I get this program now, and it's 6 figures on the line for this thing, and I have this assistant principal who actually once worked for me in the summer camp at one point, and kind of things pay back dividends
Right.
when you do good, right? And she knows me and she believes in me, so of course she gave me my shot. And patience, whoever you are, I love you. I know we haven't spoken in a while, but love you to death. Um, I'm like, all right, cool. So now I got to start hiring. So the
Mm.
first thing I do is, well, since I've been in this working around people that do really good stuff, I start with my network, right? So I call my
Hmm.
boys, I call my homegirls, and I'm like, yo, I'm starting this thing. Whatever y'all could do to help, this is the deal. Let's get it together. And Simultaneously, of course, the vision first is like, okay, how many kids do we have? We have 100 kids. Okay, that means we'll do with one grades 1 through 5. We'll have 5 groups, 20 kids. Do all of that stuff in my mind, and then it's
Mhm.
like, because this is stuff that we know as directors, right? It's like, okay, so now I need to hire, right? Okay, so I need 5 instructors, and then I need 5 group leaders, one for each instructor, who kind of be that behavior specialist or whatever. Then I
Uh-huh.
need a director that could bring this all together. So I go to my network, I hit my network. That's number one. The second thing I do is, now that I have this partnership with the school, I talk about what school, what teachers are in there that have that kind of spirit and skill, and that could, would be interested in working in after school. And then I do that as well. And then I go to Indeed and I put out a blast. And then one of the things that I did is I hired a virtual assistant, right? So a virtual assistant, someone who was in my family network. Janine, you're the best thing since sliced bread. She was able to conduct, phone screenings,
Mhm.
and then pass the ones that she thought were good over to me, and then have the interview, right?
Nice.
And the most important interview, and this is for those of you who are thinking about starting your own program, the absolute most important interview that you're going to have is going to be your director of that program.
Mm.
Your director of that program does not share your vision, is not bought in, or does not have the energy that you are looking for. You need to seriously consider interviewing more people until you find somebody that gel. Now, I
Mm.
know this. When people interview, they can put on a really good show. Okay. And sometimes it is hard to find them out. And that's why I say that direct interview is important, because it shouldn't be one interview. Okay.
Right.
When you are interviewing for leadership to lead your program, you should have at least 3 interviews.
Mhm.
You should have a phone screening with that's somebody else. You should have an interview with you, of course, and then you should have a third interview where you're in the room along with the principal of that program. Y'all going to sit
Mm.
down and make sure that y'all all come to an agreement. You may also want to tie in a clause of maybe a trial month to see how they do, because people talk about how they know schedules, they know how to train, they know how to do this, and you sit down with them, they don't know jack.
Right?
Right? You sit down with them, you put them in the program, and all of a sudden your phone is blowing up. Right? So I would say definitely make sure you do that. So, I hired, and here's the thing. I'm gonna say this because I'm just gonna get into my story of like how I end up exiting that school. Um, we got everybody together. Totally loved my director. Where my director was coming from, called all the references, was good, and she was amazing.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna hold you. Like, first year, went in, needed help with the training. Obviously, I was there. I'm a visible person. Took on a lot of tasks, did what needed to be done, went in, did the extra work. We had such a great relationship into year two. Year two was another, the struggle was with enrollment. So we had to kind of turn the gears and get enrollment up and do bigger promotion and marketing. We were successful.
Right.
Year three was a bit of a challenge. Year three was when the pandemic hit and things started to fall apart. Now,
Mm.
here's the game I'm gonna give to you young entrepreneurs out there that want to start any type of business, let alone an after school business.
Mhm.
Here's my philosophy about the natural order of things when you're an executive, when you own a company. Okay.
Mm.
Year number one, they love you. They look up to you. You are the closest thing to the man in the sky. Okay. Because it's that fresh energy and that fresh spirit,
Mhm.
right? Year two, things start to balance out. Still love you, but may question a couple things here there. Oh,
Mhm.
what's going on? Or may give some ideas like, oh, I think we could do this to improve. Now, mind you, when you're in an after school program and you're running one, you have a director, there's 2 relationships that are important to the success.
Mhm.
There's a relationship between the director and the executive director, and then there's also the relationship between the director and the principal. So
Mhm.
it's more of kind of like a triangle offense thing going on here.
Mhm.
If at any time one person out of those 3 are out of the loop or feel like they don't understand what's going on or not fully engaged,
Mhm.
throw the whole energy of the triangle off. So
Right.
keep your eye on that and make sure that you're continuing to meet with both director and principal as much as possible.
Mhm.
Streamline your communication between the 3 when necessary, and only between one and the other when absolutely necessary.
Mhm.
Okay. Year 3, you're hated.
Oh.
Year 3, you're hated. And I've tested this theory with so many other, not even executives, with directors themselves. Where by like year 3, it becomes if people are still in the same position year 3 and they don't have space to grow, like me, right? Like I pivoted. I didn't have hate. I pivoted because that's how I deal with things. But people start to be like, look for issues. Oh, this. Oh, it was better last year when we had. Yo, you remember the first year when we was things change.
Right.
But when you're in certain positions, if it could come internally, like if you are a group leader, if you a group leader more than 3 years, you're gonna hate. I'm sorry, you're gonna be a hater. Because it's like I've been doing the same thing for 3 years. To me, this is my philosophy. So people who hate me in the comments all you want. If you is in the same position 3, 4, 5 years and you young, like you in your 20s,
Right.
you looking for growth and experience. You're not looking to see the same thing every day in the majority perspective of things. So naturally, you're just gonna try to find something wrong with a situation because it's just like you just seeing this. It's like Groundhog's Day. I'm waking up, I'm seeing the same things. So it is, and I could take blame for this as a leader. Like it is a part of our job as leaders to create avenues for people and to create different things for them and to challenge them. Now, whether they like the challenges or not, that's on them. But it's still our job to create challenges and to influence.
Right.
So that is a part of that structure. So anyway, after I done went through and told y'all my life story about doing this great thing, it's still a heck of a blessing, and I wouldn't trade it in for the world because what that experience was able to do by year 3, when I decided to pivot out of that situation, was then I challenged myself to say, all right, that was my only program bringing in 6 figures. So now, how am I going to replace that? So now I pivot. Now I can't just go to somebody that I had a relationship with that AP. So it was kind of like I get it and I give you, so I'm gonna make it happen. So now it's like I really had to hit the ground running and say, all right, now I'm building stuff from scratch.
Right. You gotta start it over.
And now it's back to the grind. And you know what? The grind is a good thing. That's a humbling experience. When God says, yo, go to the grind because you too comfortable here, appreciate that, accept that, and say, you know what? You're right. Get to it. Because I won't compromise my moral compass for anybody or my peace. If I can't sleep at night, this is not the space for me. I don't care if it's 6 figures. I turned it down because it was like, I'm not sleeping good at night. If I don't sleep good at night, then it's not okay.
Right.
So make sure y'all do that. And leverage technology. Indeed was very helpful to be able to engage new people outside of my network. And it's a healthy thing to use your network, but it's also a healthy thing to go outside of your network and hire people.
Right.
Get new and fresh perspectives in your space. That's the reason why people develop this kind of like Groundhog's Day mentality where it's like, yeah, it's the same thing. I ain't got time for it. And then they start to hate. I don't like keeping a group leader in a group leader position for more than 2 years. Neither do I an instructor.
Right.
If somebody in management, I keep them out, 3, 5 years. They'll be around a little bit longer because there's always fresh challenges because you gotta engage more schools, build more partnerships, and meet more people, and they get it.
Right.
But then at the frontline level, I like to either make pathways for them or help them figure out what their pathway is going to be.
Right. And I like this. I like that you said go ahead, be okay with going outside of your network to see what is out there, because I feel like in some instance, for people that have been working with an organization specifically for a certain amount of time, it's a certain level of comfortable that you have that it almost feels like you're entitled to the next thing.
That's where the hate comes from.
And it shouldn't be given to you granted on you being there for the longest.
Right.
I feel like it should be given to you based on the merit work that you do. and
Amen.
the effect and the impact that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So I completely get it. I completely get it. Well, this is a good point. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for giving us all this wonderful information, all these tidbits, all these gems, all these jewels, um, and giving us a game plan of what it looks like to be a program provider and growing your business, being dedicated to it. You know, you have your ups, you have your downs with it, but if you stick with it, if you really stick with it,
Mm-hmm.
it could be bigger and better than you ever could imagined.
Yeah.
So with that being said, it's a good time for us to transition over to our professionals lounge. All right, everybody. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into that section. Professionals Lounge is a segment of the show that allows guests to share advice with other practitioners in the OST and youth development field about how they can begin growing their gifts and talents, but also develop themselves as professionals in the field. Here's our Professionals Lounge conversation. So, my Professionals Lounge question for you, Kenrick, is what are the main things you believe a program provider or a consultant needs to have to be successful in this field of work?
So you have to have vision, because there are a lot of people out here who are talking about what they want to be, what they can be, and what they see for themselves. But you talk to someone long enough, you can determine within a few minutes whether they actually believe they can do it or not.
Mm.
So it's vision, and that's the soft skill. The hard skills is the work. It's the grind. It's just the ability to show up. The ability to actually get out your bed and do it. Now, I said it once, I'll say it again. We are time-based beings, meaning that it's a matter of time, meaning this. You can still get to your dream if you work on your dream once a week, but you'll get there faster if you work on it 5 days a week. The math will math. Just do it. The math will math. There ain't no math that ain't mathing. It's you. It ain't the math. It's you. I have been around countless people who have seen and been influenced and wanted to do things, and it has stayed in the discussion stage for as long as I can remember. It is the very few that you see get to the other side. I'm waiting for that. I'm looking for the person that's going to come to the other side, because when you get to the side where you start to live in your dream and the blessings fall in your lap, the one thing you realize is that it is a very lonely place.
Ooh.
It's very lonely. And that is kind of the paradox of the success. It's like you dream about this every day, you go hard, you grind, and you get there, and you're like, why am I by myself when I want to take everybody with me? But I can't. Because you take people with you, and in 3 years, they become haters. It only takes 3 years. Sometimes it's less than that. But the moral of the story, my friends, is that it's more simple than you ever thought. Like, I'm in higher ed, and I could tell you, like, if I can make it, you can. Anybody can. It was just work that I put out there. I didn't even ask for it. But I approach every day knowing that it is a privilege to be in the space that I am, and I'm forever humbled and grateful for the fact that I was able to get these blessings that I get. And I'll never lose or leave that. And it's these basic principles that we go all around the world searching for these kind of like super complex magic pills or magic words that's gonna snap the fingers, and then voila, the world transforms beneath my eyes, and everything that I ever dreamed of is landing on my lap. It's not that. It's the fact that all you needed was to have a little bit of vision and just put in some work consistently. And not only will you achieve the things that you wanted to achieve because you're time-based, but I'm a walking version of the fact that some things will fall into your lap that you didn't even expect to happen. And then the real decision is, I still got to think about it, because now I got to see if these blessings are falling in my lap for the right thing. Is it in the purpose of which I wanted to do what I do. And I'm not just chasing something like, oh, well, it's a six-figure bag or a big check.
Right.
The
Right.
moral compass will always shed light on how long you get to attain and hold on
Mhm.
to the success that you have achieved.
Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of our show. If you liked what you heard and you enjoyed our conversation, make sure that you're following us on YouTube, but also hit that like button so we know what you are enjoying. You can also find us on other podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts if you want to listen to our audio version as well. To get more behind the scenes stuff, make sure that you're following us on our social media accounts, Instagram and Facebook at School After Hours. Well, that's all I have for today. In the words of Mr. Arthur Ashe, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Until next time, y'all. Bye-bye.